Welcome to another episode of the Heavy Duty Parts Report. In this episode, we're going to talk about the 5 steps we take at the Heavy Duty Consulting Corporation with our clients to help them identify and solve problems in their heavy duty parts business. We are also going to talk about how to manage information, how to see trends in data and take needed action, and how to integrate the whole thing into a workflow and where all of this data can be usable. Our featured guest, Trimble, is going to help us with that. And we're going to conclude with an example of someone who ignored the warning signs with disastrous consequences. Let's get started. You may have noticed that the intro of our podcast has changed. At the Heavy Duty Consulting Corporation, we've developed a proprietary consulting system that we use working with heavy duty parts companies. Now, this system is broken down into 5 distinct steps. Step 1 is called pre-scan. Step 2 is root cause analysis. Step 3 is development of a strategy. Step 4 is execution of that strategy. And then step 5 is a post-scan. Now, today, I want to focus on the first 2 steps, pre-scan and root cause analysis. I want you for a minute to think of your heavy-duty parts business as if it was a commercial truck. You're not getting the performance you would expect from your truck. And imagine that there's a check engine light that is alerting you to a problem. Now, you bring it to a repair technician. If you had a commercial truck and you had that situation, that's what you would do, because you know that ignoring that is going to only cost you money down the road, right? Because if you can deal with problems early, you can save yourself downtime. So a heavy duty parts business is very much the same way. There are often early warning signs that there are problems in the business that, if addressed early, can be fixed, and if ignored, can lead to much more expensive problems down the road. Now, think of our consulting firm as if it is a repair center, and our consultants are like diagnostic technicians. We've developed this proprietary system where we actually run what we call pre-scan. It's very similar to plugging in a diagnostic tool and getting a list of fault codes for a commercial truck, except we've created a system that allows us to do that with heavy-duty parts businesses. Once we have a list of fault codes, we have mapped in our system common fixes and repair information, if you will, to solving those issues. And we compare that to the dozens and dozens of heavy-duty companies we've worked with, where we've seen from kind of a global perspective what works and what doesn't. And we can give that information to our clients. But it doesn't end there. Just because you identify some of the fault codes or symptoms of a problem, you do need to look at all of the systems in a business. Just like with a commercial truck, you might have a symptom with one part, but there might be upstream issues or downstream issues that need to be addressed to truly fix the problem. Well, it's no different with heavy-duty parts businesses. And when we run pre-scan and we give our clients this list of fault codes with all of the repair information, that does give them the basis to do that root cause analysis, to look at all of the components of their business, and we guide our clients through that process. Ultimately, what this means is you can use this information to develop a strategy to move forward with your business. Now, at that point, our clients have a choice. They can take that information that we've given them and that strategy, and they can go and implement it themselves, or they can continue to work with us to implement those changes. And then when those changes are done, we can run what's called post-scan, where we run it again, we run the system again, and we show the fault codes that were identified previously and how those have been permanently fixed and that those issues no longer exist in the business. So if you're interested in having a pre-scan done on your company, identifying root causes to some of the common problems that heavy-duty parts companies experience, reach out to us by visiting our website, heavydutyconsulting.com. Now, we've put links in the show notes as well, but all you have to do is go to heavydutyconsulting.com. The call to action on that website is meet with us. It's all over the site. You just click that and you book an appointment. and we will go through that process with you. We look forward to working with you on your heavy-duty parts business. We're going to now take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Are you deferring maintenance because of filter cost or availability? Or worse yet, are you trading down to no-name filters to try to save a few bucks? Either way, you're rolling the dice. The good news, there's a new premium filter option for fleets, Hanks Filtration. If you're responsible for a fleet, you won't believe how much using Hanks filters will save you. But you've got to go to heavydutypartsreport.com/Hanks to find out more. That's heavydutypartsreport.com/HENGST. Head there now. At Diesel Laptops, they go way beyond diagnostic tools. They are your complete shop efficiency partner. From diesel technician training to complete repair information, parts lookup tools, and robust technical support, they are there to support you every step of the way. Learn more and download your free starter pack today by visiting diesellaptops.com. That's diesellaptops.com. We're back from the break. Before we introduce our featured guest, Brian Mulshine from Trimble, I wanted to just put out a general notice to all heavy-duty parts distributors that are listening to the show. We have a very special beta program for heavy-duty parts distributors that is exclusively available to listeners of the Heavy Duty Parts Report. This beta program is going to enroll you in something that we are developing to help heavy-duty distributors give their customers unprecedented visibility of where their parts are and enhance their communication with their customers in a way that is going to also reduce the call volume and the pressure on the parts counter. If you're interested in enrolling in this beta program, I want you to book a meeting with me to discuss the details. Go to heavydutypartsreport.com/Jamie. That's heavydutypartsreport.com/Jamie, and we will enroll you as a listener of the show in this exclusive beta program. What we are building there is really unique. It's never been done before. So the only people I want to hear from are those early adopters who want to get out in front of everybody else. People who run parts distribution companies and they want to be on the cutting edge of technology and leveraging that technology to enhance the buying experience for their customers. If that describes you, I want to hear from you. Go over to heavydutypartsreport.com/Jamie and book a meeting with me. I look forward to hearing you. Okay, let's introduce now our featured guest for today's episode. Now, on Trimble's website, if you go to their website, it says this. It says, Trimble Transportation is connecting and simplifying the world's supply chain, empowering customers at every facet to maximize productivity of both people and resources. In this interview, Brian talks about managing information, about seeing trends and being able to take necessary action and using that trend information in a logical way. He talks about the importance of establishing workflows at the fleet level. And most importantly, he talks about empowering fleets to be able to integrate all of this data that they're collecting and put it into some form that is actually usable for them. This is such a pain point for fleets. They have so much data coming at them now. If it's not usable, it's worthless. And so this is where Trimble is doing some very innovative things at the fleet level. I hope you enjoy my interview with Brian Mulshine from Trimble. My guest today is Brian Mulshine. He is the Senior Director of Maintenance Product Management at Trimble Transportation. Brian is focused on developing and delivering processes and programs to improve customer, dealer, and OEM support workflow, throughput, and cost. What does that mean? We're going to find out when we talk to Brian. Brian is a returning guest to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. If you recognize his name, then you've probably been with us for a very long time, almost from the beginning. Brian was with us on a live broadcast on November 5th, 2020, a long time ago. Brian, welcome back to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. Very, very glad to see you again, sir.
Hey, thank you, Jamie. It's really exciting to be here.
So, Brian, One of the things that I'm very interested in is really understanding the trends in the transportation industry, both from the operation of trucks and trailers, and also, of course, being the heavy duty parts report, we're concerned with parts and service. Brian, before we talk about your company and the products that you're bringing forward, I'm always interested in learning about the trends in the trucking industry, both with operating commercial equipment and, of course, parts and service. So, can you tell us what some of the trends you've been seeing and why you think that's significant?
I think it's significant because it helps a customer, a fleet operation, understand where to focus their investments and time in. And I think there's a lot of buzz in the industry about AI, artificial intelligence, but I also try to bring people back a little bit because we have so much information that I really call it the machine learning. How do we leverage the data we have and do a great job? It's so critical that we do a good job managing our information, and then you can actually expose it to build a strategy on how to run your maintenance operations better from watching failure trends. If you're coding properly, then you can see the trends. That's just a simple example. But I think the other things people are into is predictive repair. We have engine manufacturers today that are really focused on launching predictive repair strategies where they'll tell you before it does fail, they'll say, we'll replace those parts, we'll cover it under warranty. And that's happening today. But what we have to do is focus on making sure we put it into workflow. And last off, I think you'll see a lot of the OEMs, the truck manufacturers in the industry, will be starting to focus on getting into the maintenance business. They see what's going to happen with electric vehicle. And so a lot of work is going to be transitioning. They want to actually get more involved in maintaining the trucks. But to do that, we got to have a better strategy about how we integrate how the fleet manages their information and how to integrate to the OEMs. And that's going to be a critical part as we move forward.
Okay, so I was just at the Technology and Maintenance Council in New Orleans, and then I just got back from the Mid America Truck Show. Both of those shows, you get to talk to fleets at TMC, you get to talk to drivers at MATS. And one of the things that I keep hearing is that they can't stomach like another dashboard in the truck. They have so much data coming in that they don't even know what to do with it to make it usable. And people, there's a craving for a solution that will integrate all of these different aspects of data collection into like one dashboard where then they can actually have like usable data that's actionable. What's your opinion on that?
Oh my God, that's playing to my strengths. Thank you very much for that question. When I look at this, I went in and process mapped a couple fleets, and when I look at what they have to do to run their business, it's amazing. They have like 13 to 17 different websites to go into. It may be different OEM programs. And when you look at a vehicle manufacturer, sometimes you have their service operations, you have their service communications, you have their remote diagnostics, over their programming. They have all these different websites for just one OEM. But a customer could be running 4 different OEM nameplates in their fleet, but then they also have the fleet management system. So we are from Trimble extremely focused at integrating that workflow. Recently, we just started deploying an integration with Travel Centers of America, for example. We have a customer doing about 3,500 repair orders a month with with TA. And what we're able to do is supply all the information when they go in for work. They can get all the details. And then when the work is done, it actually ties the information from Travel Centers of America back into the repair order. So they don't have to type in all the information, the parts, the labor, what was done, the part numbers, because you got to track all that so you can know it's covered under warranty. So we've been working hard that we're taking the invoice number, invoice amount, invoice date, also a PDF copy of the invoice is all attached into the repair order with our latest integration we call under connected maintenance. That's one example. We're approaching the other OEMs and other truck stop chains to actually work with us to do the integration.
So let's get into the details about that. So I have a couple questions. One, through that integration, could you explain to our audience what like an API is and how that works to bring like data from all these different sources and bring it into one central platform?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an application interface where I call it the easy way I call it is garden hoses. This garden hose has the vehicle information. This has the estimate information. This one, And then you got to take it to the fleet management system from the, let's say, TA, and connect those pipes and say, you can get the vehicle information here, the invoice here, the PDF document here. And it's connecting the integration. So it's connecting it. So this way, I don't have to hand type the information. You put into the TMT application the VIN number, and then it'll go over to, let's say, TA, and it'll say, this VIN number, give me the information. And then it'll pull back the repair order and all the details about the repair order into our layer, but it's just hooking up the pipes. They call it endpoints in a technical term, but it's really just data pipes.
Yeah. So once you've got all those pipes connected and the all this data is flowing into this central place. Now you mentioned a couple things. You talked about like the repair order. You talked about a PDF copy of the invoice. What about a fleet that has VMRS codes, or what if they're running their own, maybe hexadecimal part numbering system that's different from what's coming in on the invoice? Do you have a solution to be able to manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a product with our Trimble Parts Network, or Trimble Parts Master. We actually have all the part numbers, and the goal is that we can actually tie it to the VMRS code. We have about 1.2 million parts in our database that we can actually help a customer identify that part number is this VMRS code, Vehicle Maintenance Reporting Standard. This way, we have one code that the part numbers will roll up under for better reporting. So that we offer that to our customers, and it's critical that the customer has to have good data because the part numbers keep getting revisions from a C91 to a C92 to a C93, I call it. So as the part number revs, you got to have good information to tie it. And that's the value that we provide our customers with our mastered parts data.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about your ideal customer. Don't just say fleets, because that is too broad and generic. So talk to me about the people. What is their situation? And then Trimble comes in, and how do they fix the problem?
I've seen fleets recently where they have somebody running the shop that is a little bit older, longer in the tooth, I call it. Somebody like me, a little bit older, and doesn't want to change, and they're not computer literate. They don't understand the value of having structured data. Really, the first thing you have to do is you have to be a willing change agent to actually adopt better processes. You have to be willing to say, yes, we're going to rebuild the way we do our business. We're going to change the workflow. We're going to move the cheese. But what we're going to need to do is work together to say, here's from step A to step B, how to properly do the job and how it does the information into a workflow. If you're not willing to change, then it's going to end up being a burden for you, and you're not going to have the data the way that brings the value. So you're not going to get the value out of the investment if you're not willing to change. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. So one, you have to be open to change, and you have to be willing to challenge the status quo of what you've been doing. Once they get the data right, how does it change what happens on the shop floor, how they acquire parts, how they go about actually getting the repairs done, whether they're doing it in their own shop or they're having it done at a dealership?
When you have the data right, you can do a much better job on your stocking levels. We call it minimum bin balance. You can actually control your parts data better because you're entering your information in. And we can make sure that the parts are there when you need them, all the way to when the technician needs a part. You can actually build it into the jobs inside of our application into, we call it the repair order. And you pull up a job code, the parts will actually be applied, and you're able to get to the jobs, to the parts, to the labor, into a better workflow. The technician will have all the data of the parts, the labor, everything tied together, and he's going to have the part on the shelf, hopefully, if they're using the reporting structure correct.
Right. And I mean, when you've got the right part and you know exactly what the root cause of the problem is, then you can fix the equipment and get it back on the road, and that just makes money and reduces the amount of downtime. So that's important. Okay, so I have a couple other questions, and I just want to get your thoughts on this. So once you have a fleet that's using your technology and they're getting these wins now, do you think that a fleet that is proactive in this regard has a better chance of attracting younger generations to work for them?
Absolutely. When I think about this at Trimble, we've been in this business a long time, almost 30 years. And when you look at it, we do have customers that are still on our older platforms, we call legacy or IBMI and Delphi. And those are more the old green screens, the black with the green letters, and it's all commands. But when you have our newest platform with our TMT web, everything's more click Windows based, much easier to use. But now we've also have our TTC Trimble Technician portal where we have our tablets for the technicians. So they can go out with a tablet and a hardened tough book, and they can actually clock in, clock off, pull up their jobs, add parts right from their tablet. And it makes them more efficient, and it's the way they feel is a better way of working. They're all gamers today. So let's gamify service.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I often think. I think about companies that complain that they're having a hard time recruiting young people, but then the young people who do come into their business, it's like they've stepped back in time. It's 1995 before they were born, and they're like, I don't get this world, right? So I think we have to meet people where they are. Okay, let me ask you another question then about efficiency. So we know that the industry is struggling to recruit younger people. We're losing that battle to other industries. Not to mention, there's also just less young people than there are like baby boomers. So we have a declining population. How important is it for fleets to get this kind of technology working for them when you think about a future where 4 or 5 guys with 30 plus years experience are retiring in the next couple years and there's only 2 in the shop to replace them? To me, every company should be looking at how to leverage technology to improve efficiency so that they can survive. Like, do you think that this solution that you bring forward will actually help companies be more efficient and do more work with less people if they have to be in that position?
Absolutely. And that's some of the things. Let's talk about the accounting and the back end processes more importantly. I remember going to a fleet and they had 5 people just keystroking all their invoices into the system to indicate all the repairs that are done on the road or even in the shop. And when we do integrations and go to a later technology, we do the direct integrations, they're actually able to reduce staffing. I also worked with another customer that actually built RO integrations to where the service communication when the truck is broke on the road. Having the ability to do direct integration by electronic communication into the native system, it changed the behavior of how the fleet did their work. They would go to vendors, they would go to service providers that actually embraced the technology, and it went to locations more. And I, with empirical data, have seen significant volume to go to a place that's leveraging data because the fleet didn't have to do as much work. The call center, I call it the easy button. If I go to that location, I don't have to keep calling because all the notes from the dealer is going back into the fleet, into their native system. So I don't have to call to get an update and type it in because their notes are all coming electronically. So how do you take the industry and start moving it to leverage the information? It's so critical.
So that brings me to another question then, Brian. For people who are supplying parts and service to fleets, like what advice do you have for them when they're thinking about updating the way that they do business? Like what should they be thinking about so that they can keep pace with this higher level of automation and the leveraging of technology? Because I see in the parts business where there's almost becoming a gap between how advanced some fleets are and the parts and service companies not being able to keep up with that because they're not investing in technology. So what do you think they should do to be able to work with the fleets that are going in this direction?
I think there's 2 areas of repair shops. When I look at repair service centers, there's independent network, which is a lot of value to the customers as well, and also the vehicle OEMs. All the OEMs are really pushing service communication layers using data and leveraging different platforms of service communication that they can provide to the customers. Independent repair shops are some of them are doing the same, but they really got to be looking at what technology can I use and leverage that I can help my customer experience. How can I help my fleet integrate our information from our work order system so they can do less work? Because so many times the service providers, they don't understand how much work it is for a fleet. They just think about getting that truck fixed, or an OEM is like, oh, this customer, he's coming in, he's always pushing to get the truck out. But what's more important is after the truck is gone, how do we get the information and make their back end processes better? That's where a lot of service providers don't understand. How do you help the customer get the information that they need? Because that's a lot of time and effort the fleet has to do with the work.
So, Brian, I mentioned before that we were both attending TMC, and we talked about kind of the reaction of fleets towards all of this data and having all of these dashboards. You were also there, and you were talking about a new VMRS code key specifically for maintenance. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, and how does that connect to our conversation today?
Yeah, no, that's a perfect discussion. There's so many OEMs, the vehicle manufacturers and engine manufacturers that are focused on maintenance. They're figuring out ways to help a customer extend their maintenance intervals by leveraging the data coming from the engines using telematics. When a vehicle has very good fuel economy, you're not putting as much soot or ash into the oil, so you can extend the oil drains. So the manufacturers are figuring out ways to help a customer lower their total cost of ownership by extended oil drains. But when you look at the OEMs, they were like thinking, the engineers thought, well, the customers will just use their internal maintenance system at the OEM. And what you have to do is you have to figure out how to connect the data. Another example, an engineer I was talking to, he thought, well, we're just going to turn the light on the dash when the oil is due. And for customers that have, let's say, 50 to 100 to 10,000 trucks, they don't want the drivers calling up every day, hey, my engine oil light is on. They don't want to manage the business that way. They want to have the data from the OEM. If you think about a GM car today, or many of the cars, Volkswagen, Audi, the cars don't tell you in the manual when to change the oil anymore. They say the vehicle will tell you when to change the oil. The same thing is happening in the truck space. It's called rule-based remaining useful life information. And we're working on a new code key that was balloted, approved, and right now it's in the appeals process. So later on this September, when it'll be finalized, where we're going to normalize all the maintenance alerting throughout. We work with every OEM as well as the engine manufacturers and customers to agree to standardize the maintenance so we can do the integration from the dealer management system or the service from the service center to the vehicle manufacturer, the engine manufacturer. We can connect and also to the fleet. So if a fleet is running let's say our case, Trimble TMT maintenance solution, we could be tracking the maintenance and we could use the same code that the OEM does. And we can connect in the cloud and we could talk to each other. Hey, I did the oil change. Heads up, I did this code. I did these 10 codes. So we're working on a new coding strategy so we could handshake the industry from all the vehicle manufacturers as well as fleet management system providers and service providers in general can all be talking about the same feature. And when I say that, let's say a valve lash adjustment. Another OEM called it an overhead adjustment. It's all going to be one terminology, one code, valve lash adjustment, one standard code, and you can handshake each other. So this new code key came with overwhelming success, and that's going to be the basis to create this new connection in the industry.
The way that this industry is so rapidly changing, it's exciting, but it is almost hard to keep up. And I think these kinds of changes to our approach to service and maintenance is absolutely needed to keep the industry strong. Brian, I know you've got some new stuff that's coming that you're excited about. You have to be careful how much you share publicly at this point, but could you give us a little insight into maybe what is going to be right around the corner?
Yeah, I gotta always start with a safe harbor, but I'm really proud of how fast our team at Trimble, how we're gelling together, and also we're leveraging across Trimble. Trimble is not just TMT. We have many different verticals. In fact, inside and outside of the transportation industry. But in transportation, we figured out a way to leverage our partners at Trimble Maps. At Trimble, we own many different solutions between ALK, Copilot, PC Miler. They're all a Trimble solution. We figured out and also we have a place called Trimble Places. And Places was for shipping, our shipping software, to know where every Walmart is or Amazon distribution center. So we can help people with routing, efficient routing. Well, what we figured out is, why don't we put all of the OEMs, the service providers, independent service providers, towing providers, rental locations, into Trimble Places, and provide a better way that when I have a service call, our mapping solution could integrate directly into our maintenance application. So we're working on some stuff now. Sharing a little bit too much, but we're really excited to be getting this coming to market soon. And also the future of our dashboards. How do we provide better data and insights to make better decisions? We're going to be really proud at our Trimble Insight Conference. That's going to be in September of this year. Or hopefully, if you're a Trimble customer, make sure you come, because we have some groundbreaking things to show this year. That's going to be really exciting.
Sounds amazing. I can't wait to see what you are going to do next. And if people are interested in learning more, go over to transportation.trimble.com. Brian, we could probably talk for another 3 hours because it is so exciting. There's so many things going on, and there's so many different aspects of this that we could talk about, but we'll have to save that for another episode. Thank you so much for coming on the Heavy Duty Parts Report and sharing with us your new role at Trimble and what you're doing at Trimble. It's very exciting. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Jamie, thank you very much. I always look forward to meeting with you, and this was a great session, and I look forward to doing this again with you in the future.
What a great conversation with Brian Mulshine from Trimble. Make sure you go to the show notes and click the links. Check out what they are doing over at Trimble. When you think about data, Brian and I just talked about that at length. When you think about data, one of the best things about good quality data is that it does give you warning signs if there's a problem. But here's the thing. Ignoring those warning signs can come with disastrous consequences. So it's time for That's Not Heavy Duty. In this segment of That's Not Heavy Duty, I want to show you a clip of a driver in California that ignored the road signs with disastrous consequences. And I think this is kind of like a metaphor for what happens in a lot of companies. The data is there. The warning signs are there. And if ignored, it can lead to disastrous consequences, just like this driver. Now, if you are listening on the audio version of today's episode, make sure you go to our website, click the show notes button, and click the link to watch the video. The truck and trailer is on the highway. It literally looks like a gator just reaches out, grabs the truck and trailer, and pulls it off of the highway into the bush. You've got to see it. So go over and check that out. And, when you think about the heavy duty way, right? Ignoring warning signs, what we do is so important. Whether it's safety on the road, whether it's the role that the transportation and trucking industry plays in holding up society, whether it's the support roles that we play in the parts and service business, what we do is important and it matters. And so if we're going to act like heavy duty people, we're not going to ignore the warning signs like this driver did. That's not heavy duty. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Heavy Duty Parts Report. At the time of publishing of this episode, I had just gotten back from Phoenix. I did some field work with a client, and then I attended Diesel Connect. This was my first time attending. I was a speaker at the show and a sponsor of this show. And on stage, I talked about what it takes for repair shops to transition to a parts and service company and really become a true parts distribution business. It was a great time. I had so much fun. If you haven't gone to the show in the past, I recommend that you absolutely do. It is sponsored by Full Bay. Diesel Connect was an awesome show. If you'd like to hear more about how we help heavy-duty parts companies, or you want to stay up to date about what's going on in the heavy-duty parts industry, make sure you go over to heavydutypartsreport.com, hit that follow button on our website. It takes you through to a sign-up form for our weekly email. We send one email a week. That's it. Never going to spam you. One email a week just keeps you up to date with what we are doing and the content that we are creating. If you're listening on the podcast player of your choice, please make sure that you get that follow button, hit it for free. And if it gives you the option, give us a 5-star rating and review. I do hear that does help us with our reach. And if you watch on the video version, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss out on any content. Thank you so much for listening to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. My name is Jamie Irvine, and as always, I want to encourage you to be heavy duty. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to subscribe to the Heavy Duty Parts Report YouTube channel, and click here to watch another great episode.